Bharati, we can get started.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bharti from GST Zen. We'll be conducting the webinar today for e-invoicing. So please give me a moment to share my screen.
So as Bharti coming up for the presentation, so I firstly welcome all the participants for today's session. And see, this webinar is both firstly understanding the knowledge, getting the background of e-invoice, but more so getting your doubts be cleared, because from 1st October it has to go live. Some of you would have already implemented for your parent company, those who have already crossed 20 crores and above, and some who have to implement. Some of you might be having a standard software where the e-invoice is available, and some of you are having your own software where you need. So you may actually ask all the queries, whatever you think will be coming to you, so that after the session, there is nothing left unanswered. Yeah. So on this note, Bharti, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So as sir had said, we'll be covering the basic topics in here, and whatever questions you have, please post them in the chat or wait until the end of the session to ask them. Okay, so in this, we'll be covering the basics, API and Excel integration. So to go into more detail, first we would be covering the basics of e-invoice, the legal provisions applicable, issue of e-invoice to customer, and what solutions are offered by GST Zen in regards to e-invoice integration. Okay, before going on to e-invoicing, let me tell you a little bit about GST Zen. GST Zen got started in 2017 mainly as a compliance software, and since then we have also delved into e-invoicing. So besides e-invoicing, we provide other services which include return filing. So return filing, in that we provide GSTR 1, 3B, 9 and 9C. Plus we provide various reconciliation reports like books with your comparison of books with GSTR 2A or 2B, comparison of sales with GSTR 1, PAN level reports, e-webel report, and we have some free tools available to the users like GSTN, HSN validator, offset facility. We also provide JSON to Excel and a tool called Autopilot, wherein you can perform a single function for multiple GST numbers at a time. Let's look at some of our numbers. We have more than 30,000 users. Lakhs of reports have been downloaded from our software. Millions of invoices are processed daily, and we have more than 20 crore invoices in our database at this point of time. So why e-invoicing? So people should not consider e-invoicing to be a burden. Okay, so if most of the people who have already implemented e-invoicing, they have come across they have realized that they have reduced their cost by around 96%, 80% of time saving, and it has made their accounting process 15 times more efficient. So when you move on to a digital process, it also brings transparency. By bringing in transparency, the ease of doing business, the ranking, India's ranking in terms of ease of doing business has moved up from 77 to 63 in 2021. It also helps in better compliance by the taxpayers and simplifies audit. So if the GST department comes for auditing your books, you will have an online record of everything you have generated. This will simplify your audits. So e-invoice or electric invoicing. So no prior standard under GST or under any other statute. This is the first time that something like this has happened. So how is it different than digital invoice? So everybody today is using some kind of software, be it Tally, be it SAP or something else. All of them are generating invoices in soft copy as PDFs or words or whichever that you are giving to your customers, maybe through email or some other mode. So the problem in there is everybody has a different type of soft copy. Okay, so it does not provide interoperability across various players like suppliers, recipient, e-bill system, return filing, government. If the GST portal allowed the people to upload soft copies, everybody would upload with a different format. So what the GST portal, GST has done, has it has provided a single format for each taxpayer to upload the information. For e-invoicing, the data uploaded across all taxpayers is exactly the same. So whoever is generating an e-invoice will be providing the same format for generating the e-invoice, and it has interoperability between software. It eliminates the need for data entry. So it also helps when you're generating e-invoice, it gets auto-populated in GSTR1, which in turn populates the GSTR2A and 2B of your customer. So let's take a look at this image. So as I was discussing interoperability. So if you are in India and your adapter, your charger is type D, and if you move to some other country, the adapter type would be type A or B or F, whichever. So in there, you would not be able to use the same adapter. You would have to buy something else. So the problem is the same because when you're using digital invoice, it does not have interoperability as in case where you see the power source would be the same, but the adapter you're using to extract that would not be the same. So in case of e-invoicing now, so adapter, it's like having a universal adapter. So everybody would be able to extract the information because the format would be the same for everyone. Let's look at progress of e-invoicing in India. This is the 5th phase of e-invoicing. The first phase went live on 1st October 2020 for businesses whose aggregate turnover is around 500 crore. Now, when we speak about turnover, turnover refers to the turnover of a PAN for any financial year. If your turnover has crossed 10 crores in any of the previous financial years, you are eligible for e-invoicing, even if it was only for one financial year. So let's say if your turnover crossed 10 crores in financial year 1920, and now it is below 10 crore, you're still eligible for e-invoicing. You still have to generate e-invoices. Okay, so this image is basically indicating that you should not wait till the last date to implement your e-invoicing. Okay, let's look at the legal provisions now. Who is required to issue e-invoices? So these are the relevant notifications, and the notification by which that taxpayers whose aggregate turnover is above 10 crore and have been enabled is 17/2022. Okay, so CGST notification 68/2019 enabled e-invoicing, brought it into force. Now let's look at Rule 48. It gives you the manner of issuing invoice. Rule 46 gives the content of invoice, and Rule 48 gives the manner of issuing e-invoice. So Rule 48, Sub Rule 4 says that an e-invoice should be issued in the form of Form GST INV1. any invoice which is issued other than in the form of GST INV1 is not considered valid, where a taxpayer is eligible for e-invoicing. And as per Rule 48, Sub Rule 6, he does not have to provide multiple copies of invoice. So as per Rule 48.1, it says that a person has to provide multiple copies, one for supplier, one for transporter. In case of e-invoicing, that is not required. So as per notification 69 but 2019, it notifies the common portal, which is einvoice1.gst.gov.in, where everybody who's eligible for e-invoicing has to register, and it also connects you for e-invoicing. GST notification 60 bar 2020 gives the schema, basically what information has to be provided and how it has to be provided for an e-invoice. We'll look at it in detail in the coming few sections. So who are the persons who are exempted? So the SEZ units are exempted from generating e-invoices. They do not have to generate e-invoice even when their turnover has exceeded 10 crores or 20 crores in whichever round they were, wherever the turnover was notified. Also, the persons covered under CGST Rule 54 do not have to generate e-invoice, which includes insurance or a banking company or a financial institution, including NBFC goods, transport agency, passenger transportation vehicle, admission to exhibition of films in multiplex screens. Which transactions are covered under e-invoicing rules. Now this slide is very important. Please pay attention. Now let's look at the document which is eligible, for which e-invoice has to be generated. It is to be generated for taxable supplies, that is invoices, and the credit and debit notes against those taxable supplies. So it is only for tax applicable for taxable supplies and not for exempt supplies. E-invoice does not e-invoice will not be generated for non-taxable supplies, which is bill of supply or delivery challan. Also, it is not applicable for ISD invoices. Now, if you look at the type of transactions, it is applicable for B2B. Basically, when you are selling to a registered customer, registered party, or you're selling to the government, or in case of export of goods and services. It is not applicable in case of business to customer, B2C, basically to a sale to a non-registered person, purchase from URD, and import of goods or service. So it is only applicable when you're selling business to a business, a person who has a GST number, and it has to be a taxable supply. Now let's move on to registration, how to enable. So the government has provided trial sites for testing how to generate e-invoice. You might want to test how to generate e-invoices, what type of errors you might get, and what issues could come up by creating an account on Sandbox. When you are done testing, you can move on to the live portal, that is einvoice1.gst.gov.in. The GST has also, NIC has also provided a trial website that is available for 100 crores or above. Other relevant information is you can get a list of GSTs which are generating e-invoices on the e-invoice portal. You can also check the status of e-invoice enablement. Basically, if your GST is enabled for e-invoicing, you can check on the e-invoice portal by entering your GST number and searching for it. You can also, it also provides a bulk e-invoice generation tool. So the government has provided a free utility, basically an Excel, to generate e-invoice. And it also provides an app to scan the QR code that is present on the e-invoice to verify the signature or get the contents of the e-invoice. Okay, now moving on to the process, GST consumption of e-invoice. So how does this e-invoicing process work? So the invoices are uploaded either through the ERPs connected to NIC or through offline tools or any other method. Then they are validated by various registrars. They will check whether the data you have provided is valid. It will also check if it has been if it is a duplicate or an original or a unique invoice. So if it is a duplicate, you will get an error, and if it is unique, the e-invoice will get generated. Once it is generated, it gives back a response in the form of a JSON, which will contain the signed invoice and the signed QR code. So from there, from the e-invoice portal, it also gets populated in GSTR1, and if e-waybill is generated, it will also be populated there, and from GSTR1 it goes into GSTR2A and 2B of the customer. So if we look at it in detail, so e-invoice is generated by the supplier. It goes to the GST system, goes through various registrars where it validates the data and checks for duplication. Then once e-invoice is generated, it goes to GST, and if e-waybill is generated, it goes to the e-waybill portal. From there, it gets populated into GSTR1 and recipients 2A and 2B, and it also goes to other relevant related parties, so which they can import through API into their books. Now let's move on to some terms and definitions, important terms and definitions. What is IRN? You must have kept hearing the word IRN. It is invoice reference number. It combines four main details. It is a unique 64 alphanumeric number, which is a combination based on the taxpayer GST number, the financial year, the document type, and invoice number. So it is a combination of all these four, and based on these four details, a unique number is generated for each invoice. It is for the consumption of computers only. Humans need not concern themselves with decoding it. It is not possible to decode this. So for example, this is the data GST, the financial year, the document type, it is an invoice, and the document number is 2. Based on these four details, this is the IRN generated by the e-invoice portal. So the second important term is invoice registration portal, so IRP. So the taxpayer sends the data to IRP for creation of e-invoice. The data is sent in the form of a JSON. So from there, if e-waybill is also generated, it goes to the e-waybill portal and goes to the GST common portal in GSTR1. The IRP sends back the response for an e-invoice in the form of QR code and signed e-invoice JSON. Okay. So it is run by NIC. Second IRP portal is proposed to be run by GSTN. It verifies and acknowledges e-invoices, replies within blink of an eye. It takes around 200 milliseconds for a response to come back from IRP. Retains invoices for 24 hours and does not contain listing of invoices. So once you have generated the e-invoice, it will only retain the information for 24 hours. Beyond that, it will not provide the information. It will not retain the information beyond 24 hours. So this is the response that IRP sends when a taxpayer has sent a JSON for creation of e-invoice. It provides an acknowledgement date, which is the date and time at which the e-invoice is generated. So you might be generating an e-invoice. Let's say the invoice date is of 15th of September, but you're generating today. So the acknowledgement date would be 20th of September. Okay, it is based on the time at which you are generating an acknowledgement number, a unique IRN, then the signed invoice, signed QR code, and the e-waybill details if the e-waybill is generated simultaneously. Now, what is a QR code? Okay, what is the significance of the QR code in the e-invoice? It is digitally signed by NIC. It contains high-level parameters of an invoice and can be used to know the authenticity of an invoice. So the government has provided an application where you can scan this QR code and get to know whether it has been signed by whether this e-invoice is genuine. So the information that you get by scanning this QR code is in the form, these are the details that you get: the buyer GST number, document date, number, document type, IRN, item count, main HSN, seller GSN, and total invoice value. It will give you the important details, but all of the details cannot be gleaned from scanning the QR code. It will just give you the main details, and it will verify whether the e-invoice is genuine. So let's look at how GSTZen integration works. So if you have any ERP, let's say Tally, we provide a TDL. So the data is sent through that TDL into GSTZen server. We validate the data. After validating, performing some checks and validation, we send the data in the form of a JSON to IRP. From there, once e-invoice is generated, we get the QR code and IRN. It gets stored in our servers, and it is also sent back to the ERP. Okay, so let's look at some of the frequently asked questions. Okay, at what time is the e-invoice required for a particular transaction? If you are selling goods, so e-invoice has to be generated before the movement of goods. If it is across the counter sale, before completing the sale, and in case of services, before issuing it to the customers, before giving the services to the customer. How do e-waybill works? So e-waybill are governed by Rule 138 of CGST rules. So e-waybills can be generated simultaneously with IRN. Okay, if you provide the e-waybill details along with e-invoice details, so it will get generated simultaneously, or the IRN can be used to generate the e-invoice at a later point of time. So if I'm generating an e-invoice today and I don't want to move the goods today, I'm moving it next Monday. So I can use the IRN of the e-invoice generated today and generate the e-invoice on Monday. So IRP supports e-waybills only for invoice. It does not support for bill of supply or delivery challan or credit notes and debit notes. It is only supported for invoice. So you can only generate e-waybill on an IRN when there is an invoice. It cannot be generated against a debit note or a credit note where IRN is also generated. If you want to cancel an e-invoice, you have to cancel the e-waybill first and then cancel the e-invoice. How to print the e-invoice? So when you are printing the invoice, it should have IRN and the QR code. So during if you are moving goods, so the digital copy is sufficient. You need not have a hard copy while you are transporting the goods. How to send the e-invoice to the recipient? IRP will not send it for you. So if you think that you generate the e-invoice, it will automatically be sent to your customer. IRP will not do that. You will have to send it by yourself. So you can email the acknowledgement JSON along with the PDF. So when you're sending the acknowledgement JSON, so the customer can verify whether it's a genuine e-invoice by using that acknowledgement JSON or by scanning the QR code in your PDF. So the government is in the process of building a system to e-invoice, send e-invoice directly to recipient. GST then also provides a method to directly email the e-invoice. What details of the e-invoice should we save in the ERP? So if you are generating the e-invoice through your ERP, you should save the acknowledgement number, date, invoice and QR code digitally signed by the IRP. I would also recommend that you save the acknowledgement JSON. Okay, until what time can I register an e-invoice? So until what time, see if an invoice is of date 15th September, ideally you should generate the e-invoice for an invoice on the same date, but the portal allows the e-invoice to be generated on an invoice which is backdated. It is recommended that you generate within 48 hours to comply with the law. But as of now, there is no bar on generating e-invoice for backdated invoices. Can the e-invoice be cancelled? So this is a very important question. So let's say you have generated an e-invoice and later on you come across a mistake. So once e-invoice is generated, it cannot be modified. You cannot even modify, add or delete a comma once you have generated
This meeting is
an
being recorded.
e-invoice
The recording has stopped.
For an e-invoice. Okay, so if you want to cancel it, you can cancel it within 24 hours, beyond which the e-invoice cannot be cancelled. And once you cancel it, you cannot use the same invoice number. So IRN is unique and it is based on 4 parameters, one of which is the invoice number. So once it is used, it cannot be used again because IRN has already been generated against that invoice. Okay, so what if you realize the mistake after 24 hours? In that case, you should cancel it in your books and not report it in your GSTR1. So once you generate the e-invoice and it is not cancelled within 24 hours, it gets auto-populated in GSTR1. So if you are cancelling it in your books, make sure that you delete it from GSTR1 while filing it. Okay, so some common errors and how to avoid them. If you're providing invalid HSN code, you can verify the HSN using GSTZen's validator. It is a free tool available on the website. The PIN code does not match the state. So the government on the e-invoice portal has provided the list where the where the state, all the pins are given belonging to a state. You should check if you are giving the correct pin. Recipient GSTN is cancelled. So you have to check the whether a GSTN is still active before generating an e-invoice, since a B2B invoice cannot be generated for an inactive GSTN. Hence, e-invoice cannot be generated because e-invoice is only applicable for B2B and not B2C. If your amounts are inconsistent, so I would recommend that you use a software, because when you are doing everything manually, you are bound to make errors. Okay. Plus, you should always make sure that you're giving the correct transaction type. Sometimes you are selling to an SEZ unit, but you mark it as B2B. It should be marked as an SEZ transaction and not a B2B transaction. This will cause issues while filing GSTR1. The GST portal will throw error saying that this is an SEZ unit and the transaction type you have given is B2B. So now let's look at some of the technical aspects. Preparing an e-invoice, communicating with IRP. sending the invoice to the customer or receiving it from the supplier. So as we had mentioned before, as we had discussed in the previous slides, so the invoice, this is how e-invoicing works through GSTZen. The data comes from the ERP or accounting software. It gets validated by GSTZen. We then send it to the IRP. Once e-invoice is generated, we get back the response, that is IRN, digital signature, your QR code, and that information gets saved back in the ERP or accounting software. So now what is e-invoice schema? Government has specified a format in which the information has to go. There can be no deviations from this schema. So if the government has said this is how the information has to go, if you deviate, it will not accept your data and throw an error. So you have various sections like the transaction level details, document level details, seller details, buyer details. Okay, if you look at this image, some details are mandatory and some are optional. So whichever details you see in this image are mandatory details to be provided for generating an e-invoice. It should have the seller details, the buyer details, the document details, which are your document type, number, date, etc., and the line item details, wherein you provide your HSN number, description, the taxable amount, taxes, and other applicable charges, plus the total amount details, that is your total invoice value or other charges at invoice level. So these are all mandatory details. Now, if you look at this image, so the contents which are highlighted in blue are optional details that you can provide while generating the e-invoice. That is your dispatching address. If it is different to your selling address, then you can provide it other, plus you can provide export details or your payment terms or some reference details such as customer uh, order number, etc. Okay, so these are the total number of fields in the schema, 28 of which are mandatory. Okay, and then you have 45 optional sections. Okay, so the total is 133. Mandatory is sections, mandatory fields are 28. And then if you are providing optional sections, such as your dispatch address and everything, those you can provide. So as I said, many are mandatory, other are optional. Okay, we do not need to go into detail. Now let's look at the solutions that GSTZen is providing. We provide various solutions in the form of Excel connector, direct database access, and we have custom solutions for some ERPs. If you are looking at Excel, so we have provided the option of drag and drop, where you can drag and drop your file in the software and generate e-invoices. Plus we have the secured folder method, where the file is received by our servers and the e-invoice gets generated and we send back the data. Plus we provide GSTZen APIs, where a person can integrate his or her ERP with GSTZen through APIs, and we have ready-made solutions for Tally and SAP. Now my colleague will take you over some of these offerings that we provide and show you a demo. Srivatsa, please take over. Hello.
Yes,
Srivatsa?
Bharti.
Yeah.
I will start sharing my screen.
Please do.
As Vatsa is sharing the screen, any questions to the participants so far about either generation of the e-invoice or the storage? Of course, Bharti has covered all the scenarios, but
Sir, can you see my screen?
yeah, your screen is visible.
And also my audio is clear, sir?
Yeah, your audio is clear.
Okay, I will get started with the demo. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Srivatsa, and I will be demonstrating how e-invoices can be generated through GST Zen. And primarily, there are three methods. One is our Excel-based integration. The second is our API-based integration, and we also have a billing software where you can directly create and generate e-invoice in GST Zen. So the GST number for which I will be showing the demo is present here. This is the GST Zen Dashboard. When you create a new account, this is the list of GST numbers that you will be getting. Whatever GST numbers you have added, we will display it here. And we also have an option to add a new GST number here. So this is the dashboard that you will be seeing on logging in. And when you click on one particular GST number, we will show you the detailed dashboard for that particular GST number, wherein you will have options to download a report, reconcile your data, and file GST returns, which is a part of the GST software that we provide. And you will also see an option here called E-Invoicing. So I will be clicking here, and that will bring us to our E-Invoicing page, where you see multiple options. You can directly upload a JSON and generate an e-invoice. We have integrations with Tally and SAP. And then you will see primarily there are two Excel methods, GSTZen Excel Full and Your Excel. So GSTZen Excel Full is what I will be showing a demo of today. It is a template that is similar to the government portal template. I will quickly download the file and show you what the template looks like. As you can see, there are three sheets in this template: the About sheet, the Master Data sheet, and the Sales Invoices sheet. About sheet and master data sheet are only for reference. The sales invoices sheet is where you will be entering the data. And here, there are columns that are firstly color coded, and also some of them are marked in bold and some of them are not in bold. So the ones that are in bold are mandatory fields for e-invoicing. Okay, and columns that are color coded belong to the same section of the e-invoice schema. So these columns that I have highlighted belong to the document details. Then these columns that I'm highlighting right now belong to the supplier details. So likewise, all the columns that belong to a specific section of the invoice schema are there in a specific color. And like I said, whatever is in bold is mandatory to generate an e-invoice, and the other columns are optional. So this is very similar to the government portal Excel utility, and the data entry, like I said, should happen in the sales invoices sheet. Now I have a filled up Excel, which I can show. And here, as you can see, I have entered the data for all the fields that are, all the columns that are marked in bold. I've entered the invoice type, that is, can either be INV for invoice, CRN for credit note, and DBN for debit note. Similarly, I've entered the document date, the document number, the transaction type, whether it is B2B, whether it is an export invoice, whether it is being made to an SEZ buyer, and so on. Then place of supply. And then I enter the supplier details, the supplier GST number, legal name, address 1, city, PIN code, and the same set of fields will also repeat for the recipient section of the e-invoice schema. We have the recipient GST number, legal name, address line 1, city, and the PIN code. Now ship to and dispatch are optional sections. If at all you are providing any field, please provide all the fields that are marked in bold. If not, you can leave the entire section as blank. So ship to and dispatch I have not entered, and then now I come to the line item details for the invoices. I have 6 invoices here. If you notice the document number, you will see that this repeats. This is because this document number has 2 line items, and hence I have repeated it in 2 rows. So if it has 10 line items, there will be 10 rows, and all the other information will repeat. Only the line item information will change. So coming to line items, I have my HSN code, product description, quantity, UQC, unit price, taxable value, GST rate, and the GST amounts. So once I have added all this, I can just save the file and upload it into GST Zen by clicking this button. You can either select the file or you can drag and drop. Both options are supported. And now you say upload your Excel. So now we will show you a screen where we will summarize the number of documents that you have uploaded. So you can see that the number of documents are 5 and the taxable amount is 3090. This is the tax amount. And this is the range between which these invoices belong. I can raise an e-invoice for a backdated invoice. The government allows that. So I'll be raising invoices for the date of 16th September. And coming to the errors tab, we will display all the errors in your file. So it says for webinar bulk 100 e-invoice is already cancelled, so it cannot be generated again. Hence, apart from this invoice, we will show all the other invoices in this tab, where you can see a more descriptive summary. That is, you can see the customer GST number, their name, their invoice number. The invoice number that you have given, the invoice date, the taxable amount, and the tax amounts itself. So, and now you will see that it is in yellow color here, which according to the legend means that e-invoice is not yet created. It is simply a regular tax invoice at this moment. And I am showing you the PDF. You will see that there is no IRN or QR code. So it is a regular tax invoice. So in order to upload this to the government portal, you have to click this button and say, yes, upload e-invoices. So when you do this, you will notice towards the top left of your screen that it says IRN is generated for this invoice number. And you will see that for one invoice, it has turned to green from yellow, and now that has happened for all the invoices. So IRN has been generated, and you can verify by clicking the PDF, and you will see that there is an IRN number, a QR code, and the acknowledgement details. When you scan this QR code from the government portal app, you will be able to see the details of this invoice. So this is how in bulk you can generate e-invoices through GSTZen's Excel utility. Let me verify that this e-invoice has actually been generated. So I click this invoice number, and it will take you to a page which is the invoice detail page. So you will see all the details of the invoice, the details of the supplier, the buyer, the consignee, what are the invoice details itself, then coming to the line item details and so on. That information will be available here. Also, here we specify what the IRN is and who has issued the invoice, because it can either be a sandbox, can either be issued by the sandbox portal or be issued by the production portal. So that you, we will be displaying here, so that you get to know where this e-invoice has been generated. Then you will also have the acknowledgement date and the acknowledgement number. An e-waybill can be directly generated from here. I will just provide some e-waybill details and show you that e-waybill can also be generated. I've entered the vehicle number, the distance can be 0, and I've entered the mode of transport as road. Now when I click this button, it will say e-waybill generated, and you can see here that we have the e-waybill details, e-waybill number, date, until when it is valid. In fact, if you open the PDF, you will see that along with the IRN details, you also have the e-waybill details in the PDF. So this is how e-waybill can be generated. Now I will verify this e-invoice that we just generated. How that can be done is, I will download the acknowledgement JSON from GSTZen, go to the government's portal and verify it in their verify signed invoice page. So once I upload the file here, it will tell us whether this is a valid e-invoice or not. On submitting, you can see that it says this is a digitally signed invoice. This is the same QR code that is available on our portal. These are the details of the invoice. You have the supplier and the recipient details, and it is digitally signed by the NIC IRP. So this is a valid e-invoice that we have generated. Now, speaking about cancelling an e-invoice, we also have a cancel button right here in the invoice detail page itself. You can just click this button and say, yes, cancel e-invoice, and the e-invoice will get cancelled. So this is how you can bulk generate e-invoices through GSTZen, and also generate e-waybill and cancel the e-invoice in GSTZen. So that brings me to the end of my Excel demo. Now we will be moving on to the API demo. So this is particularly helpful for software developers. I hope you can see my screen of Hopscotch. So this is a similar tool to Postman. It is an agent to test your API. As you can see, this is a post request to GSTZen's endpoint URL, which you can see it has been highlighted on my screen. And you have to pass a token as the header for authentication purposes. This token will be available to you when you create a new GSTZen account. For Sandbox, we provide a list of Sandbox GST numbers, and we also provide a Sandbox token for testing. In the body of the request, you should pass the E-Invoice JSON. And here you will see the different sections of the E-Invoice JSON. That is the transaction details, the document details, seller details, buyer details, dispatch, ship to, and the item details itself. So I have all the information here, and to the same endpoint, you can pass e-waybill details in the payload, and both e-invoice and e-waybill will get generated at the same time. So let me just show you that quickly. I will be changing the invoice number because for webinar/110 an e-invoice has already been generated. So my response tab is here, and when I fire the request, I will get a response saying IRN generated. As you can see, I get a response saying IRN generated. This is the pin-to-pin calculated distance between the ship to and the dispatch pin codes for the purpose of e-waybill. I have the IRN number here, and if I scroll further below, you will see the acknowledgement details. That is acknowledgement date, acknowledgement number, and also the e-waybill details, e-waybill number, e-waybill date, and till when the e-waybill is valid is also available. Signed QR code and signed invoice is also something that we provide in the response, and these can be verified by using GSTZen's free tools. We provide tools to validate signed QR code and signed invoice. So you can copy paste this data into our tool, and we will decode and show you the information about the invoice. So scrolling further down, you see these two fields, signed QR code image URL and invoice PDF URL. The signed QR code image URL is nothing but a URL that contains the e-invoice QR code. So all you have to do is call the URL. You have to append GSTZen's domain name and call the URL. When you do so, you will be able to download this image. And likewise, the other URL that you see here is of the invoice PDF itself. It's a similar process. You have to call this URL with GSTZen's domain name prefixed, and you will be able to download the complete PDF. You can see that IRN is generated. There are e-waybill details as well, and there is the QR code. In fact, this is exactly the same PDF that will also be available in your GSTZen account. Let me just show you that. So if I search the GSTZen sales register for this invoice, I should be able to get this invoice. So I go to GSTZen, I go to sales register, which is where all your sales invoices and e-invoices will be stored, and you can apply a bunch of filters to narrow your search, and you can apply these filters and also download a line item level and an invoice level Excel, and you can download up to 50 e-invoice PDFs at the same time. So that flexibility is something we offer in our sales register. So when I enter the invoice number, you will see that it shows the invoice number here, and this is essentially the same PDF that I have opened there. So this is what we provide in the response. Now, in order to cancel an e-invoice through API, all you have to do is call GSTZen's cancel API. So nothing else will change in the request. The body remains the same. The headers remain the same. All you have to do is just change the URL and post the request. And when you do so, you will get a response saying IRN cancelled. You can see that it says IRN cancelled. This is the UUID of the invoice. UUID is nothing but a unique identifier for the invoice in GSTZen. So when I come back here and refresh the page, it will no longer say e-invoice generated. It will say e-invoice cancelled. So as you can see, e-invoice is cancelled, and this is when it was cancelled, 20th September at 3:53. So this is how e-invoice and e-waybill can be generated and also cancelled very easily through GSTZen's API. Now coming to the last part of my demo, which is GSTZen's billing software. So we have developed a new billing software wherein you can directly create an invoice and also generate an e-invoice from GSTZen itself. So I will be showing a demo of that now. In the sales register, there is a button called Create Invoice. When you click this button, you will see the billing software. The first section of the billing software is the document details. Then we have the supplier and recipient details. And ship to and dispatch are optional. So if at all you want to provide these details, you just have to select the checkbox and we will display the forms. If you don't want to pass ship to, you can uncheck the box and they will disappear. Then we have the line item details where you will be entering information about the product, the HSN code, and so on. And then finally, we have additional details. If you have any payment terms, they can be set and we will display them here. And also any invoice level notes that you would like to add, you can add those additional notes here. Finally, we have some information like discount and other charges. If at all you would like to provide, you can input the value and the total amount will get computed according to the values you have entered. And the invoice amount can also be rounded off by clicking this button. So let me start adding, let me actually create an invoice. The document number will be auto-populated here based on the series. So if your previous invoice is in INV/001, the moment you land on this page, the invoice number will be populated to INV/002. Then we can provide the document date and the rest of the information is already here. By default, the document type will be invoice. You can change it to credit note or debit note. Similarly, the default supply type code is B2B. These are the valid supply type codes that you can change it to. Reverse charge and IGST intra are set to no by default. Of course, you can change it to yes if necessary. Then supplier details, which is your details when you try to create a new invoice, they will be auto-populated here. And for the recipient details, you only have to search with the name or their GST number, and we will display the recipient in the drop-down. Once you select, all the other information will get auto-populated, provided this information is available in our customer supplier master. So it is a one-time activity to upload your customer supplier master to GST Zen. It can be done easily. Once that is done, all the information for the recipient will be auto-populated. Likewise with ship to and dispatch also, if you provide the GST number, automatically the other fields will get auto-populated. So that is about the supplier and recipient. Coming to line item details. So all you have to do is select the product from the product list. So if you've added a product list to GST Zen, we will display all those products in this, and you just have to select it. Once you select, based on the product, all the amounts will get auto-populated. We have the total item value, the IGST amount, what is the GST rate, what is the taxable amount. It is fetching all this information from your product master. So again, entering the product master is a one-time activity. Then I can just select the HSN code as well. And now we have an invoice ready to be generated. So scrolling down, this is my total amount, 224. Let's say I provide a discount of 10 rupees. It becomes 214 and I have other charges of 100 rupees. Then it becomes 314. Now, in order to save this invoice, I just have to click this button. And it says, okay, ensure this. So there is an error. We can read this error. It states the specified number is not a valid invoice number. So there is something wrong with our invoice number. I think it is exceeding 16 characters. So I can just change this to 20 and then come back down and save the invoice. So now you will see that there is a message called invoice created. Please note that only the invoice is created. The e-invoice is yet to be generated. So in order to do that, you have to click on review. We will show you this page. By now you are familiar with this page. And in order to generate an e-invoice, just click this button and an e-invoice will get generated. The rest of the concept remains same. In order to generate an e-way bill, you have to click this button. And to cancel the e-invoice, you can click here and cancel the e-invoice. So this is how you can generate an e-invoice through GST Zen's billing software. I have covered our Excel integration method, our API integration method, and our billing software method. And that brings me to the end of my demo. If you have any questions, please feel free to add them in the chat box. Thank you.
So there are a couple of questions in the chat. Now, actually, you can unmute yourself, raise the hand, and you can ask. We'll take the questions one by one.
Gautam.
So Namrata was asking, if we did not cancel the e-invoice within 24 hours, you will have to go to the GSTR1 manually. You have to delete it since it would have gone to the government portal automatically. Siddharth was asking, e-way bill is generated, but no movement of goods taken took place. It can be cancelled within 24 hours from the time of generation. But the same is not cancelled within 24 hours, then the system would not allow cancellation by the consignor. Consignor cannot cancel it because the e-way bill is generated by the consignor, originator of the goods. Consignor could be the seller or could be the buyer if I am getting the goods. So the time limit to cancel the e-way bill is only 24 hours. And you can renew it 8 hours after the 24 hours. You can renew it for another 1 year, one day. Diesel and petrol are under VAT, so e-invoicing necessary for that. Sanjay, as Bharti has shown you that slide where the documents where the invoice is applicable, it is applicable only to those green color transactions if it is a taxable supply. Since diesel and petrol is not taxable supply, you will not have any invoice. Mohit, where you can get an Excel template once you sign up to the GSTZen, like as Srivatsa has navigated in the e-invoicing section, you have invoice, the two templates are there. There is a standard template of Zen. You can then generate using your template also. Then can I generate e-invoice for the services? Yes, you can generate e-invoices for the services also. How to generate an export invoice? Mithul, export invoice for sales, everything is same. So there is nothing specific if export invoice. So the transaction type will be treated as a invoice and subtype is export. That's the only selection that you will do. Through Tally software, can I generate the invoice? Lakshmi, Muthu, yes. Tally Prime, they have already given an inbuilt feature of generating invoice through the software. If you are using the older version of Tally, which is Tally 6.3 onwards, 6.3, 7.2 till ERP9, GSTZen has an add-on to generate an invoice through older version of Tally. In fact, even Tally Prime also Zen has a TDL where you can use Tally Prime TDL of Zen and generate invoices through that. Tally TDL given by Zen has additional features of easily correlating where the invoice generated, not generated with a color combination, where e-way bill generated, not generated, if your e-way bill is expiring on a click of a button, renewing e-way bill, all those features are there. Trupti is asking for the year 17-18 sale has to be accounted from July or from the 1st April 17. Trupti, it has to be taken from July 17 and not April 17. There's no specific notification to it, but the ICAI guidance note says April 17 to March, July 17 to March 18, because April to June, the turnover is not a GST turnover. So the definition of 2 subsection 6 aggregate turnover in the GST Act relates to the GST turnover. Hence, the first 3 months period will not be forming part of the turnover. Can I use GST and e-invoice? Aapki question clear nahi hai? I request you to put the question once again. Siddharth is asking, shall I switch Tally ERP9 to Prime? Which is more suitable? Difference between both? Siddharth, Tally Prime e-invoice is inbuilt feature. Tally ERP9 in e-invoice is an add-on from the GSTZen. Couple of people have raised the hand. You can unmute yourself and ask.
Hi there. Hello.
Yes, Mohitji, boli.
Yeah, actually, Bharti says that within 24 hours, we after 24 hours we cannot cancel the invoice.
Correct.
She suggests that we shouldn't report that invoice into GSTR1. Now my question is, it allowed that? Because I am thinking that if any document having like they have generated the IRN, then that is a validated invoice. The only legal process to cancel or to nullify the impact of that invoice is through credit note. So in that case, I need to issue the credit note.
So credit, whenever you are issuing a credit note, you should comply with these provisions of Section 34 of the Act. In the current case, if there is no supply at all happened, in my view, raising credit note is not appropriate. Maybe you can consult your tax advisor. I am of the opinion that when you have not even made any supply, you have to cancel the invoice and not issue a credit note.
You are saying like even after 24 hours, I just because I cannot cancel the e-invoice at portal, so I just like opt with that. I shouldn't report the invoice into GSTR1. You are saying this?
Correct.
Okay. Another thing, like I do understand that these are the all aspects that I've cleared from this meeting. And now question that where I can, because we are using the ERP NetSuite, right? And we want the integration with that ERP through GST Zen. I understand for the time being I can go with the Excel template, and I can like we can use your template. So is it like you can provide this service that we can use our customized PDF template for the e-invoice?
So when you are using, there are multiple, you are using some NetSuite ERP. So you can have your IT guy connect to us to integrate the APIs provided by GSTZen into your NetSuite. After that, once the invoice is generated, the PDF, as Srivatsa has shown you, it can be automatically emailed to the customers from the GSTZen. Or the old method of you continuing the invoices from your place also permitted. In fact, GST Zen has an option of signing the invoices through using your signature and automatically being sent to the customer. So there is a cloud signature services are there. So invoice to the sign invoice apne aap customer ko chala jayega. So one should explore that feature. It will save a lot of your effort.
Are there any specific templates, invoice template provided by GSTZen, or any client can use their customized template while using your Excel, uploading file?
You can use your template. You can just drag and drop your template, or you can use GSTZen. Both are permitted.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Yes. Vivek ji is asking what is the reason why e-invoice is allowed to be made within 2 days. Vivek, there is nothing like e-invoice allowed within 2 days. Ideally, you should generate the e-invoice before issuing the customer. Agar for some technical reasons you are unable to issue the e-invoice, you should do it whatever is the well within the permitted time. As of now, the backdated e-invoices are permitted. Zen is another software like Tally or SAP. Answer is no. Zen is a GST return filing software, and it also provides an integration for filing for generation of e-invoices and filing of the GST returns. So it works like an add-on over the Tally and over SAP. Is there any required amount to generate e-invoice? No. If you are making a B2B supply, even if you, let's say, 1 rupee invoice, you have to do e-invoice. Likewise, where the e-way bill has 50,000 limit, there's no limit for the e-invoice. So someone is asking GST portal and e-invoice portal. Can the both to be used, or can any one of that be used? No. So between GST portal and e-invoice portal, you might have mistook. So GST portal is only for filing GST returns. E-invoice portal, there are 10 portals. The first IRP is run by NIC. E-invoice to be generated only on the IRP portal. Vivek ji, you cannot do a future date invoice. Matlab, standing today on 20th September, I cannot generate an invoice for 21st or 22nd. But standing on 20th September, I can generate an invoice for 31st August or 1st September or 1st April of this year. That but currently portal permits. From ERP and cash purchase, the GSTR1 will we have to be filled manually? Sanjay, table 7 and table 8 of GSTR1 has to be filled manually. Rest of the information will be auto-populated from your e-invoice portal to your GSTR1.
Sir, sir, this is Sriram.
Yes,
I have one
Sriram.
more, sir. Sir, what we are doing is we are present in 2 locations. We are using 2 instead of going for one tally. We are using two software, but we are billing from different place of supply. How GSTZen helps? Like we are having Tally Prime. How GSTZen helps in between? Like because the Tally, our auditors are saying in Tally itself you can register with the API. And you can generate e-invoice directly. How GSTZen helps in between this process?
So like how Tally is doing it, the Tally is doing only for Tally Prime. GSTZen can do both for Tally Prime and ERP9. It is an add-on which costs an additional fees.
Okay, so you are providing TDL that can be uploaded to Tally Prime and we can use it.
Perfect.
Okay, sir. The second question is with regards to the bills. Sir.
Yeah.
Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, sir. So we are in 2 places, but with a single GST number, and we sometimes we dispatch from one place and sometimes we dispatch from another place, and we have separate license of like Tally license. So will there be an issue in generating e-invoice?
No, there wouldn't be any issue in generating e-invoice.
But we have to, like in this case, I have to integrate both APIs with the e-invoice portal, if I'm not wrong.
No. So that all that software will take care. Okay. Wherever the software will take care of. See, after the invoice, what is happening is before you issue the customer invoice, you are just reporting to the government, getting an acknowledgement and issuing it. So the procedure wise, there is no change. From the accountant perspective, data entry, there is no change. The software in the backend will take care of integrating, reporting, all those things will be taken care by the software.
Okay, sir. Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Thank you.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me, sir? Yeah. So we are generating an invoice through Tally Prime. Invoices are generating properly, like the IRN number, and then there is one more number is there, account ID, something like that, and then acknowledgement number, and then date. Everything is perfect. But the same thing, the same is not reflecting in a GSTR1. GSTR1, yeah. Nowadays, what we are doing manually, we are updating. So on an average daily, we have to raise 50 to 60 invoices, where we are facing very.
When you use GSTZen software, GSTZen will take care of tracing if some of the invoices are missed in the portal. It will automatically push those differential data to the government portal automatically.
No, it is not happening because we tried connecting Tally and then as well as GST portal. And then GST portal people are telling that it will happen automatically, but it is not happening. But from the Tally side, there is no problem because invoice is rising, invoice is happening. Correct. The same thing is not reflecting in GST.
Correct.
Portal.
So there are problems like this. What I am saying is GSTZen software has a feature to do a reconciliation of the invoices which are there in your books of accounts, not there in the portal. Maybe out of 100, some 10-20 issue items wouldn't have got pushed to R1. So automatically GSTZen software will do this reconciliation and push the differential data to GSTR1 automatically.
Okay, can I get any contact number? Okay, fine. He mentioned here. Thank you, sir.
Are the contact numbers? Yeah, please connect to us. Sir. Yeah, we will get back to you on how to do this.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Sanjay is asking, where can we find help if we have problem in Tally Prime while making e-invoice? Sanjay, if you are using the Tally native function, you have to call to the Tally helpline. If you are using GST Zen TDL, you have to get in touch with the coordinates which you are seeing on the screen. Is e-invoice for B2 sale mandatory? Answer is no. E-invoice is only applicable for B2B and not B2C. Is the process for generating credit note and export invoice same? Answer is yes. Yeah, I guess we have addressed all the problems that you have, issues that you have raised. And
I have a question. I have a question, please.
Yes, Vivek.
We are manufacturers of industrial chemicals.
Okay.
Our chemicals are being used by consumers. They are also industries.
Okay.
So in a way, this is a B2C invoice which we are raising.
Okay. No invoice, B2C, no invoice required.
E-invoice is not required.
Not required.
Okay. So B2B, they are businessmen. They are consumers, but they are businessmen.
No. B2B means they should be having a GST number. If they have GST number, invoice.
They are GST registered. Yes, they are GST registered, but they are using it as a raw material for their product.
That doesn't matter. If you are selling to another registered person, invoice is applicable.
That becomes B2B.
Correct. Yeah. Again, Punarvashi Trading Company, you have raised the hand. Do you have anything, sir?
Sir, the thing is, like you explained about the like it is not possible for the future dates you can generate e-invoice.
Correct.
But for the pre-dates we have a you can generate e-invoice.
Correct.
How it works, sir? For example, if I'm using a tally, I'm supplying the goods. The goods are the e-invoice has to be generated before the goods has to be reached. If I'm not wrong.
Assuming someone has already done the data entry and it was a holiday, 2 days, 3 days, some accountant was not there. On Monday, accountant comes back for Friday, Saturday, Sunday sales which have been done. He can generate an invoice to it.
Okay, sir. So in that case, but if the good reaches before, like I'm generating an invoice, say tally, I'm generating on Saturday. The goods has reached on Sunday, but I'm unable to generate the invoice. I can generate on Monday, but
yeah,
during the transportation of goods, will there be an issue?
The issue can be if the e-bill is not generated, then you will be attracted penalty under section 129.
Okay. So the e-bill can be should be generated, but now e-invoices can be done later date.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions? All right.
Hello?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Praveen for this side.
Yes.
So what, sir, I for the B2B invoices, but is taxes exempt taxes.
For exempt supply, e-invoice is not required. If making an exempt supply, e-invoice is not required.
Why, sir? Because this was a tax exempted.
Because there is no taxes in it. You report to table 8 in GSTR1. I said table 7 and table 8 doesn't require e-invoicing.
You confirm mandatory for the GST number.
Sir, there is no tax liability, no e-invoice.
Okay, just fine. Thank you.
Yeah. So Mayur, I am not clear with your question. You have 2 locations under one GST in the city. How to generate e-invoice? I don't know. So it is just regular invoice. You are doing e-invoice.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, we have the 2 locations in same city.
Right.
But issuing invoice from 2 locations. So in that case, 2 different address will arise on invoice, sir.
Sir, currently how you are doing, you will be doing in the same way. There is no change.
Okay.
कुछ भी change नहीं है.
But what about address, sir?
अभी क्या address डाल रहे हो? You will continue to put the same address.
Okay. Okay, sir. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. ठीक है. Done. Yeah. So great. Good to see. It was very interactive, and I hope all the questions were answered. We will be sharing the recording of the session and also the presentation to all the registered participants on the registration email ID. and feel free to get in touch on the coordinates. And thank you, Bharti and Srivatsa, for taking the whole presentation in a very loose way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Conditions.